What's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat?
Republicans believe that the government is there to serve the people. And Democrats believe that the people are there to serve government.
My name's Erin. I'm a Republican.
You didn't bow your head in shame like I'm a...
What was it like when you met President Trump?
He went for the clam chowder. He got part of it on his lapel while he was eating. He offered me some. I was way too nervous to be eating clam chowder in front of the
Okay,
president.
so that's what I wanted to know. Never before were we told to stay home. Never before have our schools been shut down. What was that period like for you?
Outrageous. I was mayor in 2020. Nothing chapped my hide more than when they started saying that some businesses were non-essential. Look, I don't care what you do for a living. As long as you're at a job where you have to put food on the table for your family, that's an essential job. Thank God for people like you and others that were pushing back, because if you hadn't, who knows where we would have been. But a lot of these elected leaders that did all this, they're still in office. I don't think they can open prisons fast enough to put these people in. The last thing government should be doing is controlling our lives. What government should be doing is figuring out how to get the hell out of our lives. Neighbors turning in neighbors for not wearing masks.
But it would be really nice if people would at least acknowledge.
Don't hold your breath on all that. Representation means you actually listen to the people you represent and you represent them, not yourself. Leadership is leadership.
Leadership is leadership.
And it doesn't matter what I personally believe. If the majority of people in my community believe something, then I'm going to represent them. A lot of people just sit and complain and do nothing. Do something. People don't know how much power they really have as individuals. Sometimes one person speaking truth to something makes a huge difference. PVTalks, rebuilding trust, one conversation at a time.
Hey everybody, I am Erin Dimaggio with PVTalks. Our guest today is former Rancho Palos Verdes Mayor John Cruikshank. John was born in Inglewood, California, raised in El Segundo, went to school at the University of Southern California, and he started his career as an engineer working for Caltrans Los Angeles. And then shortly after, he started his own engineering firm called JMC Squared. He's been a professional engineer for over 30 years. He's worked on hundreds of projects, including working for our local school district, Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District. Today, I have the honor of interviewing him, and I want to ask him all about his role that he played running for supervisor for Los Angeles County for the 4th District. So thank you, John, so much for taking the time to be with us today. As I was preparing, I couldn't help but noticing how many things you've done in your life and all of your accomplishments. And as I said when we came in, you know, you've made national news, so I appreciate that you would take the time just to sit down with us today. So it's really an honor.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I should have wore my MAGA hat that I had on.
Yeah. Oh, you had it on?
Well, actually, I was carrying it, and CNN, of course, focused in on that portion versus the portion of we need help in Rancho Palos Verdes.
Oh, wow. Wow, how convenient of them to do that.
Right.
Yeah. So, John, you grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
12-sided dice, 20-sided dice.
Okay, I never actually played, but I knew it was like really popular.
Really? You missed out.
I'm gonna have to play. So you were in the band.
I was.
You were an engineer.
Yeah.
No, my husband's an engineer.
Nerdville.
Okay, my husband's an engineer.
What type of engineer?
He works for Elon Musk.
Oh, so
yeah.
he's
structural mechanics. He does all of the initial stuff to make sure the rocket doesn't blow up.
Okay.
So he's
a rocket scientist.
He's a rocket scientist. He's a rocket scientist. But engineers are very likable, I think.
They are.
Why would you want to get involved in politics?
You said it already, and you're married to one.
Yeah.
Problem solvers.
That's right.
We need problem solvers. We don't need politicians anymore. We don't need people that just say, that tell you what you want to hear. You need people that can take a problem, dissect it, get all the information possible, do the research, do the hard work, and come up with lasting solutions that are the best for society. We're in trouble. Our country needs problem solvers. So we need engineers. We need architects, builders, people that have just been solving problems every day. Every minute of the day, we're solving problems. That's what we need. Sacramento, Washington, all across the country. In every city, people need to be running for city council, school boards. That's why.
So was there something in particular, because you were like 50, right? When you decided to run for city council, was
That's
there
right.
some moment where you're like, I'm running? Was there something that happened that made you say, I'm getting in the game?
Well, I had been interested for years, and I had been involved with numerous community groups of AYSO, region, region 10. I was part of that. I almost became a regional commissioner, which is a crazy job. That's like a full-time job, but I was assistant regional commissioner. Love that. Thousands of kids playing soccer, great organization. I was on the rubber stamp committee in Redondo Beach, the Harbor Commission, but that had an opportunity to meet the city council members and how city works or doesn't work. I just love the idea of how the whole concept of how democracies and how representation should work, and how our founding fathers had set up this beautiful constitution of allowing us to find our own freedoms and having government that works for the people, not the other way around. And then the sadness of realizing that that's not what we really have, and then realizing that most people don't want to get involved, and thinking, if I can do it, I should do it. Like, that's the right thing. And so when I was here in Rancho Palos Verdes and I got on the planning commission after 3 times, like the first 2 times they told me no. And I realized that was a political thing. You got to get to know the city council members so that they trust you. Always great people on all these committees. So I got on that, realized that Rancho Palos Verdes is a really special place. I mean, people really want to live here. Like, a lot of people will say, well, why do you live there? It's so far from the freeways. And it's like, well, that's the whole point.
Right.
And they don't understand the natural beauty and the freedom that you get if you really can live this experience. Neighbors are great. My neighbors are amazing. So giving back, and then realizing now there's 2 open seats. I've been on the planning commission, kind of been there, done that. It was my time to run. I ran, and there were 6 of us that ran. I was fortunate enough to win one of the seats. That's where I met Eric, Alegria. An amazing experience. And running for office is I walked a lot. People told me you should walk in the city. They respect that. I did. I was driving a Mini Cooper, so it's hard to stick signs in that too much. I had to fold the seats down a lot. And I'd bring like a couple nutrient bars, breakfast bars, and some water, and I would just go out all day. For weekends, I'd go out all day. I'd go out after work, and I just really enjoyed hearing what people would tell me. One person, I remember, I was up near Hess Park, and one of the people said, they looked down and they said, you see that green asphalt on Hawthorne Boulevard? I'm like, yeah. He's like, can you get rid of that? And you think about it, like, yeah, this is an everyday problem.
Right.
Like a
He's like,
person,
I'll vote for whoever can get rid of that. That's all I want.
Right. I mean, that was his request. Right. It wasn't, world peace or anything. It's just get rid of that green asphalt down. And so one of the first things that we moved forward based on that guy's comment was, hey, could we landscape Hawthorne Boulevard? And so they hired a landscape architect, and they tore all that asphalt out. And at first it was just rocks, and that's all you saw was rocks. And a lot of people said, John, what the heck's going on? Like, we appreciate the asphalt coming out, but there's just rocks. Give it a year for the water to grow. There's natural plants that are there. And man, once that started growing, people were stoked how Hawthorne Boulevard looked. For a mile stretch now, you just have this beautiful natural, and the green asphalt's
Did the
gone.
guy call you and thank you?
He never called me, but I'm sure he was. I was just thinking about how happy he probably is. And so those are the
He's
things.
Like, I did that. I voted for that guy. I did that.
I hope he did.
Yeah.
I hope he felt good.
Yeah. So it's been 3 months since you took your last day in office. You served for 8 years on the city council for Rancho Palos Verdes. What's life for you now that you're out of that position?
I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. I knew that there was a finality to being an elected official to just not being an elected official. I knew it was coming, planned for it, knew that I continued to be busy here in my business, as you mentioned, JMC Squared, which is in San Pedro. And so I've refocused on that. But honestly, it's It's been a relief in many factors. I mean, being a part of last year and the amount of angst that had gone through our community with the landslide issues, and it not being something that's just an easy A plus B equals C solution. There's just so many people that were affected by that, and being away from that has helped me a little bit. I think it was a lot. Like, I needed to recharge. And so even though it was an honor to be helping the residents and working with the city and that, I don't really miss it, honestly.
Yeah.
At least that portion. I needed to recharge.
I'm wondering if you can kind of share, because there might be some people not living in Palos Verdes that don't know about the landslide.
Sure.
So could you give a brief recap of the situation, how it started, and then also where it is right now?
Yeah, so kind of the mile-high view of the landslide. It's in our city of Rancho, Palos Verdes, which is on a peninsula, which is in the southwestern portion of Los Angeles County. We're right next to the Port of Los Angeles. We're south of LAX. Back in the 1950s, Los Angeles County, which most people probably know is the largest county government in this country, they were trying to extend one of our major roads from the top part of our peninsula down to the ocean. In doing that, they actually activated what they call an ancient landslide. They actually were doing work right through a landslide area. And when they did that, that activation of that landslide meant that the landslide started to slowly move. People usually think of landslides as something sudden, like a bunch of water and mud just comes down and buries houses and roads. But in our city, we've had a very slow, they sometimes call it a creeping type landslide. And residents have built in that area over the decades. They've learned to live in that area. And over the last couple of years, it rained so much continuously for a couple of years, definitely more than the average. That created a movement of 10 times faster than what we were used to. Many things have been tried before to slow it or stop it. Many people said can you build like caissons or barriers or walls to stop, but we're talking about 600 plus acres of earth. And so physically there's nothing that we can build to stop that amount of dirt. We've learned to use deep dewatering wells. We've actually slowed it down quite a bit. But last year while I was mayor, everyone was in the thick of things, and we had gone through a number of gyrations talking to the governor of California's office and of course the federal government and Los Angeles County and all the different agencies. So there was a lot of discussion. We learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work, and right now I think that we're on a path to where success, but it's a path that will never end. The city will need to continue to work on that problem forever.
What I'm curious about with that area, Portuguese Bend, we were living in El Segundo, my husband and I, and our 3 kids.
That's where I grew up, El Segundo.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
We looked for homes and we checked out Portuguese Bend. And we took one look at that geographical survey and we're like, no way, we're not buying a house here. Right. With all of the regulations, city regulations, why have they allowed people to continue building homes there?
A lot of people believe that the city was the one that wanted more homes there. And what's interesting is that back in the 70s, a number of homeowners sued the city for their right to build because the city said, we don't want you building there. And so it ended up going to court and litigation, and the city lost. The geologists for the property owners were able to convince the judge that a lower safety factor would be okay, private property rights. And so people were allowed to build, but they all basically were signing over that hold harmless with the city. The city doesn't issue permits. The homes that were grandfathered in were allowed to stay, although they were offered, going back to that issue with LA County. LA County settled, and they were going to pay people off if they were willing to leave their homes, but many of them didn't. Some of those areas had traditionally not moved. What we saw the last couple of years, it doubled in size. Mm. Like, unfortunately, we saw the beautiful Wayfarers Chapel, which never had a problem because they were dewatering, and that They had to deconstruct the entire church, which is, obviously a huge loss for many people. And then the poor people in the Seaview area where that community had not moved either. That's more traditional looking homes where you've got, homes with nice lawns and curbs and gutters and asphalt streets, where in the Portuguese Bend area, the center area, that's a little more like nature. It's a little more like the Wild West where, you got people that have been there since the 1950s and not a traditional, but the Seaview area ended up moving quite a bit, and those homes were not in an area considered an issue, other than maybe a slight portion of it. The city's never really encouraged people to live there. The people that own the properties have always wanted to develop there, and I think you find that you have a lot of risk takers that live out there that want to live in that situation.
So what is their current situation? I know they had to turn off the lights, there was no electricity, they were living off of generators. What is life like for them right now?
Yeah. The area, once again, of the 600 and some acres of moving land, seriously moving land. Many of those homes still have gas, electricity. Of course, the water has not been turned off. But in the center area, more of the Portuguese Bend community, a number of those homes had their gas and power shut off back in end of July of last year, 2024. And here we are, March of 2025. So we're literally talking 7 months of people that have not had electricity from Edison, no gas service. I think one could argue that electricity is harder to get along without versus gas. A lot of people went to generators, which are tremendously expensive, obviously environmentally not great because of the diesel and fuels that are emitted, and the noise, just the inconvenience of the whole thing. And then to convert over to more of the newer technologies like solar and battery, you're talking $150,000. So many of the residents are senior citizens. They can never afford their homes now. So they're on generators still.
Wasn't there recently an offer for a buyout?
Yes.
And can you tell us about that?
So everything when there's a disaster like this all goes through the governor's office, regardless of what state it's in. Of course, we're the United States of America, and states' rights are obviously pretty important to our Constitution. And so when there is some type of disaster, whether it's specifically in a city like Rancho, Palos Verdes, usually that disaster is declared for the entire county. So in our case, Rancho Palos Verdes is in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County wants to declare a state of emergency, and then the governor actually is the one that signs that state of emergency. Now, if there's enough cost to that where it gets beyond what the state can handle, then the state rounds up all that money and they send it off to FEMA and the federal government with, of course, all the receipts on what's taken place. And then FEMA decides if monies can be sent to the state, in our case, California. The state was able to get a certain amount of relief funds overall for California, not just for what happened here and not just what happened up in other parts of LA, but wildfires and other things. They get $200 million. They carved out of that money $42 million to go specifically to the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. That money then is used to buy properties. Now, you start doing the math on properties in California, $42 million. Maybe the average home is $2 million. So you're talking 20, 21 homes. When that occurred, there were only 2 homes that were identified as red tag homes. Our city of Rancho Palos Verdes, we were aware that many homes were getting damaged, but we didn't do mandatory inspections. We, once again, allowed people to be adults and figure out their own safety. Of course, we said, look, if there's anything wrong with your house, we will come and look at it. But I think a lot of people understood that when you have the city official look at it and they see something that is so dangerous that they have to red tag a home, they don't just turn a blind eye to that. So when this FEMA program came out, there was only 2 red tags. We said, okay, if you want to participate in this FEMA program, the highest priority homes that would most likely get money would be red tag homes. So about 80 plus homes actually ended up applying for this FEMA money. And that's out of about 600 homes that are in the landslide area. So about 80, 85 homes. When they did that, they had to get inspections done. And so the city came in and reviewed all 85 of those homes. Of those 85 homes, 20 of them ended up being red tagged. So now you have 20 red tag homes.
About 40 million.
Yeah, so there goes your 40 million right there. My understanding is that because the process is still ongoing, there's obviously a lot of city, then state, then federal government. They said the process takes about 8 months. I understand there's about 23 homes that will be able to be purchased. The purchase is not the full price of today's dollar. It's 75% of the value prior to these emergencies, which would be like December of 2021. But if you bought your home in 1960, the value, even 75% of the value in 2021 is going to be pretty substantial. So our hope is that these 20 or so homes and the people that have those purchases are able to have enough resources to go and move somewhere else and be able to, stay out of the danger and get their lives back together. And then what happens is those homes, the title goes to the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, everything gets knocked down, it goes back to its natural state, and then those properties never will be built on again.
Okay, so how do you guarantee that? Because I like conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Okay, so one theory is they're going to use it for high density homes. They're going to get everybody off that property, then they're going to fix the land, and then they're going to build high density homes there. Could that happen?
Well, let's put that one to rest. So okay. First of all, I mean, you know, since you're in this area, that the city right now has about 1,500 acres of open space, and that's managed by the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. The city, when we were founded in 1973, we had about 42,000 residents. Today we have about 42,000. So our city and the people that live in this city, we're really here because we don't want to be living in a high density city. And so honestly, if one city council member ever made what you just suggested out in public, there'd be problems. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So and then the other thing is that let's play that scenario out. Mm-hmm. You're a bank and someone comes to you and says, I want to build a high rise in that area. The bank is going to laugh so hard at you. Nobody's ever going to loan money for that because it's not going to be stable. Like I said, that land movement is going to be at least 5 feet a year. Maybe we can get it slightly less, but it's always going to be moving. Nobody's ever going to lend anyone money to build there. So honestly, if someone thinks that's going to happen, it's more likely that high density is going to come into more stable areas in our city than there. That would be the worst place to build.
So let's pretend you had all the money in the world, unlimited funds. Is there any way to stabilize that area?
All the money in the world.
All the money in the world.
As an engineer thinking through, that is such so much land mass there that I don't think you could physically stop it. I mean, you're talking about something, and how deep do you go? Because every 100,000 years, the oceans rise and fall 300 feet. And there's times when the entire LA basin is covered with water and just the peninsula sticking out of the water. That won't be in our lifetimes, of course, but, and then new layers are formed of this bentonite, which is, the bentonite's the reason behind the landslide and the movements because of volcanic activity. I just don't physically see how that could be done. And I remember when I first ran for office, and one of the first suggestions was just build a bridge over the entire thing. And I'm like, well, first of all, what would you found that bridge into? How do the foundations work? And it's a mile long. Building a mile long, not having anything to put the foundations into, you don't have enough money in the world to do that. Right. So honestly, I think the best we can do is to get it back to where it was prior to all these storms, where it's moving in a manageable, smaller area. You know, get it to stop moving in the Abalone Cove area and stop moving in Seaview so they can get their lives back to normal, somewhat normal. It's a mess right now. One of the ideas I had was maybe the peninsula, because all 4 cities deal with other disasters, the fire, the landslides. All cities have landslides actually on the peninsula. Maybe we have some type of pooled insurance for all the homes. Because in Rancho Palos Verdes, there's like 17,000 home structures, and there's only 600 in the landslide area, so it's a fairly small number compared to the overall number. And us taxpayers, I don't live in the landslide area either. My tax dollars go in to fix the landslide, so maybe it's better that we just pool our resources together and have a blanket policy for all our homes for fire, flood, mudslides, landslides, the whole thing, and just tell the insurance companies go pound sand, literally, and then we can take care of ourselves. It's like a lot of big companies, they self-insure themselves, right? A lot of big construction companies,
Right.
they figure it's just cheaper just to have cash on hand, and then if something happens, they could cover it versus paying for insurance all the time and having to go through all the hoops to figure out who pays what. So there could be something like that. Maybe FEMA could be the arbiter of that. Maybe the state of California, if we were run by people that actually knew what the heck they were doing. I don't really trust the people in California right now, because I let me look at the insurance commissioner. He's one of those climbers, right? You know, like all these politicians, they jump from job to job that they have no business being in these jobs, but the only reason they get elected is because they're part of a certain political party that has all the power.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I trust the state, but maybe FEMA under President Trump would work out pretty nicely.
Is the rumor true that Palos Verdes North is going to be turned into a toll road?
South, it'd be south.
Oh,
it'd be in the landslide area. Well, if I was on the council, of course, that would have never come up because I don't believe in taxes or tolls. So I don't believe it ever will. That's not a city council. I've talked to my friends on the council and have asked them whose idea was that, because that's something that came up after I was off the council. Apparently one of the residents wanted that explored. And I think in any type of representative government, when someone brings up an idea and it's at least worth exploring, I think you should. Like, even if you think that it's potentially a bad idea, once again, I think things should be explored. And even if it doesn't sound right to you, listen to it. You never know. Something good might come out of that idea, because they do need money. Like, they do need money to keep that landslide mitigated once they finally get it under control. And I wouldn't say they have it under control yet. I mean, they're getting there, but it's not under control. And it's not going to be cheap to maintain that every year.
My 11-year-old, I told him that I was meeting with you. I said, he's the former mayor of Rancho Palos Verdes. And first question was, we have a mayor?
That's good. Good for him.
I know. We live in the unincorporated area.
Okay.
So
your
we
mayor's
actually,
Janice Hahn.
we don't have.
You do have a mayor.
Oh, she's my mayor?
That's what they consider.
She's
the supervisors.
Okay, that's what I did not know. I was like, I'm not sure who our mayor is.
The supervisors are considered the mayor of the unincorporated areas in which they govern. Yeah,
all
so
right,
she's
now
your
I'm
mayor.
going to start calling her more often.
Yeah, she's your mayor.
But then he was asking, he said, what's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat?
What'd you tell him?
So I said, well, you know, when you have student council elections, okay, there's always one kid that's like, we're going to have free ice cream every day and 2 hours of recess, and everybody loves them, and they're all cheering. And the Republican is sitting in the back, calculating, and then comes up, it's going to be too expensive to do this. David, my son, he says, I think I'm a Republican.
Yeah, good for him, but everyone else hates the Republican.
Right? Because it's
throwing...
like, how much is it going to cost?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how much is the ice cream going to cost? Who's going to pay for the ice cream? It's going to make us fat. Then we're going to have to go on diabetes medication. Like, there's a whole cycle to this. It's more popular, but it's not, I don't think it's the best path.
I like to keep it a real simple.
Okay. What
I say is, Republicans believe that the government is there to serve the people, and Democrats believe that the people are there to serve government.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I would say that's...
So that keeps it as simple, because I think...
They want free ice cream.
When you start taking away people's ice cream, and they don't even think about anything else you're saying, like, where's my ice cream? Yeah. So people love free stuff, and if they realize that it's not free, I mean... When
you gave a definition, you spoke at the Palos Verdes Women Federated meeting, and you said, I'm a conservative. Conservatives like to conserve things.
Yes.
And it was like, yeah. But there's so much bad press around being a Republican, where people have associated being a conservative Christian as being a white supremacist, and a Christian nationalist is the other word that the Democratic Party uses all of the time. So I feel like we need a rebranding. And more communication, so people understand what's at risk. You know, when you have trillions of dollars in debt, like, where's that money coming from? Yeah. And how are we going to pay that back?
It's funny, I went to a lunch yesterday. Senator Bernie Moreno, who is from Ohio, he was a part of the most expensive U.S. Senate race in the history of the country. They spent roughly $500 million each attacking each other. He said, By the time that my opponent was done spending $250 million attacking me, he said, I hated myself.
Oh.
And so he said it half jokingly, but the honest truth is that when only one side is a part of the media and only one side is getting their message out, then what do you expect?
Yeah.
I mean, and you're right, the way to make people understand who you are as a conservative, whether it's a Christian conservative or just a fiscal conservative like I try to brand myself, we need to be out talking to people, and not just talking to the people that are like us, but maybe people that aren't like us, you know, people that are Democrats or no party preference, or people that are in communities that have never even met a Republican before. We need to be doing that a lot more, and we need to have community centers. We need to be doing things to them to, you know, tell them about who we are, help them out on stuff. You know, I did a lot of work for my city as city council member. I would love to help people that want to learn how to be an engineer. Like, I go to a lot of junior high and high school events where it's, you know, an outreach, career outreach type of thing, and I always ask, you know, who in this class knows what an engineer does? And I literally maybe get one hand, two, out of a class of 30 or 40 kids. Mm. And that's sad, right? I mean, you go into areas where their parents or relatives aren't even engineers, and we're in such desperate need of technical people like this. That doesn't mean they become a conservative. That doesn't mean a Republican. That's nonpartisan.
Right.
It's just doing the right thing. But then they get to know you, and you get to know them, and then eventually they say, "Wow, well, you know, this Erin that I met, she was, you know, this amazing kinesiologist that, you know, understood when during the time we were having COVID, she was reaching out to people, helping them with their physical activities and helping them stay strong." And I just like her. Like, it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm a Republican, like me. I mean, that right. nobody likes you for being a Republican. That sounds kind of crazy.
Right. My name's Erin. I'm a Republican for 3 months.
At least you didn't bow your head in shame like I'm a...
So I want to go back to the landslide, because I'm on this text group. When COVID hit, I didn't have any friends for a while because all my friends initially were very liberal. Mm. And I was liberal. But I was like, to me, I thought that meant liberty. I thought that meant choice. So I was like, I don't understand. I thought we were all for my body, my choice. Like, I'm going to go out. Right. I'm not staying home. I'm, you know. And so I, long story short, we could not stay friends anymore because they thought I was a horrible person for making my own decision. So then I met a bunch of women that happened to be Republicans, and we all agreed on the shutdown. We all felt the shutdown was anti-American, and we felt it was wrong. We were more afraid of the shutdown and not afraid of COVID at all. So anyway, we have this text group, and I think we got like 30 people on this text chain. So one of the things they really wanted me to ask you was, what was it like when you met President Trump?
Well, I met him twice. So the first time was when I was early on in it was his first term. And Jerry DeHovick was the mayor at that time, and he was making a trip to his golf course, Trump National, in our city. And I think he was doing some fundraising events in other cities. So he was just stopping in there. So it was very brief, didn't have a chance to really, other than getting a few photos. All 5 of the council members were there, and one of our council members, who I became very good friends with, Eric Alegria, he's a Democrat, and he didn't think twice about going to meet the president. I mean, look, it's the president. Forget about R's and D's at that point. You know, it's an honor to meet the president, whether you disagree or not. Right. And so he did, and he got a bunch of crap for it. So, you know, he'd be a good guy to ask that question too. The best time was the second time when I was mayor last year and had the opportunity to represent our city, and to give him a debriefing, because he was going to do a press conference during his campaign. And Lily Amini, who's the general manager there, her and I become very good friends. And, you know, the Trump golf course is great. As she said, I think it's important for you to come here because the president's going to be here, and I'll get you an audience with him, and you can give him a debriefing. So I printed out a bunch of maps of the area, and landslide is less than a mile from his golf course, and you can see the landslide from his golf course. And I didn't know how long I would meet with him, 5 minutes maybe. He showed up, him and I, along with Lily and their legal counsel, the four of us sat in his restaurant. He always orders one of three things. I think they said he either gets the clam chowder, a burger, or then like, I'm guessing on this last one, I think it was like some type of roast beef sandwich or something. So he went for the clam chowder. He got part of it on his lapel while he was eating. He offered me some, but it was too early in the day for me, and I was way too nervous to be eating clam chowder in front of the president.
So that's what I wanted to know. You were nervous?
Well, I mean, of course.
Okay.
I mean, you know, anytime you're meeting someone of that stature and you have an audience with them, and we were literally sitting this close, and it's funny because I didn't know what he was going to say or do, but he, of course, started calling me Mayor John, which was fun, and his first question was, "Are you a Republican?" It was kind of caught me off guard a little bit because I didn't know if he cared or not. He did ask me that. I said I've been a lifelong Republican, and so, but more importantly is I'm here representing our city, and it's a nonpartisan thing, and let me tell you what's going on. And so I kind of explained it all, and he took both his hands on the map, and he went like this, and he said, "Can you just bulldoze everything and so that you can, you know, get it so it stops moving?" And I said, "Well, yes, you could, but there's 600 plus homes there, so we really at this point can't bulldoze it." And he ultimately said, "John, is it a problem that could be solved?" And I said, "It's definitely a problem that could be alleviated, but it's a bigger financial problem than our city." He said that, "Okay, well, when I become president, I will help you." Now, we've reminded him of that statement. Of course, I don't have a direct
That's what I was wondering. Has he helped?
I don't have a direct contact. I go through one of his top aides that works with him that I met that day. I know it's in front of him, but of course the fires have occurred, and you know, I hate to trivialize what happened in our city, but honestly, compared to what happened in the fires, it's terrible what happened in our city, but the fires, when you're talking 10,000 plus homes, that the magnitude of that is off the charts. What's interesting is that, you know, Gavin Newsom was there to greet him at the tarmac. Of course, the president didn't know that, you know, Gavin Newsom does all these things to try to help the Palisades and that, but he still hasn't come out to Rancho Palos Verdes, even though I requested of him coming out there numerous times, and he still hasn't. So the president obviously cares much more about Rancho Palos Verdes than our governor does.
Yeah. Governor Newsom. I'm not a fan of him.
No, not either.
So one of the questions that somebody had for me, they said with all the water that you have all these wells, and so I think was it eight different strategic points or something like that?
Yeah, I want to say they've done at least 12 of them, but I think a couple of them have sheared off already. So let's say there's about 10 wells working right now.
Okay. What's happening with all of that water?
I know, it's a shame right now. So it's like 1 million gallons a day. Of course, the immediate problem was, of course, slowing the rate of movement down in the landslide. That's the whole purpose. They're deep wells, but the pumps themselves are really, because there's so much pressure already, it's kind of like a siphon when you've got a hose and not that you've ever siphoned someone's gas or not, but when you siphon something, you just get enough pressure so that once it starts flowing, that it just keeps flowing.
That's right.
And that's so those wells, even though they're deep, the pumps are actually fairly small. And it's because once you get that going, they just keep going. And so it's about 1 million gallons a day.
It's going in the ocean.
It's going right in the ocean now. What they need to do, and it can't be reused as it is, it's got to actually be filtered. Once again, going back to FEMA and the federal government, I've been told that the Army Corps of Engineers has filtration systems that sit on a truck, but they've never offered to allow us to use it. Now there's private companies that do that as well, but and I've sent all that information to our city manager and our current city council. What they need to be doing is they need to be filtering that water. They need to be getting that out to Terranea and to Trump and other large irrigation usage, because that's just too much water to be putting back into the ocean. Yeah, so that's what's happening now, and
Make sure fire hydrants are filled.
Absolutely. Well, right. I mean, we need the water. Regardless of landslides or not, we still need water. We're typically in drought conditions. They've told us to stop using water. We all cut down our usage by 20 or 30%. We've done our part. Of course, they kept raising our prices. So we do our part and we get punished for it. But that's a whole other story.
It's a whole other story.
Yeah.
You served for 8 years on the city council. Were you mayor for all 8 years?
No. So we rotate. So I was mayor twice.
Okay. So you were mayor twice. And when I think about your career, in that 8-year period, unprecedented is the word that comes to mind. Never before were we told to stay home, and never before have our schools been shut down. A year and a half. That's how long they were shut down.
Yeah.
What
Crazy.
was that period like for you?
It was absolutely outrageous. Now, you and I didn't know each other then, but I mean, we were, of course, on the same wavelength. And what's so interesting, I was mayor in 2020 when the whole thing went down. You know, March 19th is when the governor shut the place down. I was at a big birthday party at Trump National on March 8th, celebrating former Mayor Susan Brooks' birthday, and Janice Hahn was there. Other council members were there, and
I have this.
yeah, no, that's me. I did test positive. I was one of the first elected officials in America to get COVID. And I had it for 3 days, like literally the 3 worst days of my life.
Oh, okay, you had it bad.
It was, but 3 days though, and my head was like a jackhammer. I could not sleep. Nobody knew it was happening at that point, but you remember they brought the big Mercy ship in here, which is right across from my office here. And they just went crazy. And then they started talking about essential versus non-essential. Nothing chapped my hide more than when they started saying that some businesses were non-essential. Look, I don't care what you do for a living. You could be a doctor or nurse, or you could be selling socks at a mall. As long as you're at a job where you have to put food on the table for your family, that's an essential job. The government telling us what's essential and non-essential really was the first thing that just was outrageous. And after my 3 days, I did a video that I posted on the business site, which is LinkedIn. Got about 20,000 views immediately. And basically I said, look, I've had it for 3 days. We can't shut the government down. We got to just protect the elderly and people that are sick, and we can't shut it down because we don't know enough about it. Why would we just do that? Why is the reaction to just shut the economy down and destroy the United States, which they literally did, and LA County was the worst of the worst. We still have this fake doctor that's in the health department, Barbara Ferrer, and her trying to guess on what we're supposed to be doing. She's not even a doctor of medicine for that sort of type of...
I think she's a PhD in social work or something.
Oh, great. So, okay, so if I had a doctorate in civil engineering, does that mean I'm an expert in health issues? No, I mean, it was crazy. And thank God for people like you and others that were pushing back. Because if you hadn't kept pushing back, we might, who knows where we would have been. But it's just, you know, the human spirit that gets us out of these things. My whole thing was, they were closing the trails down and the beaches down. It's like, that's the stupidest thing you could do. The best thing we could be doing is letting people outside and getting fresh air, not yelling at each other to wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart. That was insane. There was no proof of that. And they tried to make us all feel guilty about that. And thank God there were enough people that were strong enough to push back. And I think it proves how strong America is at the end of the day. And that actually made me very proud when eventually all this craziness went away. But a lot of these elected leaders that did all this, they're still in office. They're still there. It's one of the reasons I ran for supervisor is I couldn't take it anymore. They're controlling our lives, and that's the last thing government should be doing is controlling our lives. What government should be doing is figuring out how to get the hell out of our lives. Let us live freely, and let our property rights, business rights, individual rights, school rights, kids' rights, all these things have just been taken away from us, and we just let it happen. And until you have people start pushing back, we're going to continue to get worse and worse. And COVID exposed a lot of it, but honestly, a lot of it's still there.
A lot of it's still there, and a lot of it's worse.
Yeah, right.
They didn't notice how many laws were being passed while people were safe at home.
100%.
Did you have any power as mayor to open up businesses in Rancho Palos Verdes? Did you try to do that?
Yes.
What did you do personally as a mayor to fight back?
I think the first thing, other than just being on social media and trying to be an advocate for freedom, we were one of the first city councils to just come back in person. I knew that it was important that we don't do these Zoom calls and people are watching their city council sitting safely at home while we're conducting our public meetings. I knew that the plastic things between us at the dais was stupid. I let our city do it because I knew I didn't want our city manager to put himself and his staff into a situation where now we start getting the county and the state to do things. So You know, I had to walk a line of allowing our city government to have the freedom to stay out of trouble. But our city manager, honestly, he was pushing for businesses to stay open and figuring out ways to do that. We worked very closely with the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, with Eileen Hupp, who she was a champion of that. She was trying to write guidelines to get businesses back open. And we had a lot of pushback from our county supervisors, our state governments, other cities. They didn't want to do it. And I think the Palos Verdes Peninsula, we all were pushing to get playgrounds open. They closed down Terranea for a while, where they said that people couldn't go to the pools, and because they had a pool, and it's just crazy the things that they were doing. So we just kept pushing back and pushing back.
And was there anybody on the city council that was opposed to opening up?
Not at all. All 5 council members were all in line with opening things up and fighting for our trails to be open, and our beaches and our businesses and schools. We were all aligned. Democrat,
Parks
Republican.
were closed for a pretty long time.
They were.
So my kids, this 5 years ago, we were still going to the parks, showed up at Ernie Hallett Park, and it was caution tape all over.
Yeah.
So, and this was while Black Lives Matter protests and riots were happening. There was smoke in the air because we had buildings being burnt down in Santa Monica, right? I have friends that were over there in that area. One of them was held up by a gun point during that time. Yeah. And then, so I know all that's going on. We can't play in our park, but they can do all that. They can smash windows.
Crazy.
Like, I had my son and I said, let's rip it down, you know. So we ripped down all the tape, and then I called a couple of my friends that I knew were still going out. I was like, oh, the tape's down at Ernie Hallett, you can come play now. So we would do that on a regular basis. But I have a friend who's a police, her husband is a police officer, and he said the neighbors would call the police all the time to report that there was moms at the park with their kids. It was neighbor calling in neighbor. He would show up, and he was just so angry. And then he also said he had seen massive amounts of suicides, he was seeing all of this happening. But then the thing that drove him nuts and just hurt the most was the neighbors reporting on kids playing. Crazy.
That probably was the saddest part. And it did become a partisan thing, and I think that was the beginning of this hyper-partisanship that we now see. That COVID. What's ultimately sad is I think we're learning now that our U.S. government was probably responsible for creating the virus and covering up the virus where it got released from. I think sometimes, though, we have to go through these sort of nightmares to change, because I think the path we were heading was wrong. I think we were heading down a very, very dark path, and I think the light has been shown on many things. And now we're in an age where we have Doge, and we're shining the light on all these different departments and waste and abuse. I see what's going on with how much fraud's been taking place over the last several years, and I don't think they can open prisons fast enough to put these people in. Yeah. But people weren't good to each other. Like you said, neighbors turning in neighbors for not wearing masks.
Yeah. I had one neighbor, she was literally standing outside my kitchen window with an umbrella because it was raining, but she was outside my kitchen window in my front yard. And I said, I came out and I was like, are you okay? What are you doing? And she's like, there's a man walking over there. And I'm like, there's a man walking across the street. I'm like, so? And she's like, the virus. And she's, she was that afraid. Because he was an older gentleman. Yeah. So I don't know if she thought he was just gonna die, or but it was so bizarre the way, people, they were just really psychotic. And it's hard for me now to kind of let all that go. I saw how you guys acted. There's a lot of people that just were insane like that, and they were ruthless, and they were mean, and they pretended as if they were loving and that they were saving lives, so they felt heroic. So now I'm trying to accept that we all just felt differently, right? We all just felt differently. We're gonna move forward, but it would be really nice if people would at least acknowledge, yeah, you know what, I was really crazy at that time.
You know what? Don't hold your breath on all that. No politician in the California area is going to be admitting that they did anything wrong. I think we should just be happy that we got through it and all the madness was exposed. I mean, think about if something like that happened again. Do you think people would just be throwing their masks back on? I don't think so.
I think half.
Maybe half. Well, California, you're always going to get...
Because 80% of the United States population got the vaccine. So that means like 80% complied.
Well, honestly, I ended up doing the vaccine only because I couldn't get in anywhere.
Yeah.
But I already had the virus. Honestly, I was protected anyhow. And I had probably one of the worst strains, the original strain. And it was 3 days.
Yeah.
I didn't die from it. I ended up recovering after 3 days. And so do you shut the entire world down for that? No.
And a lot of people say in response when you say, you know, like I was fine, then they're going to say, wow, so-and-so died and so-and-so died. And it's heartbreaking, it's sad, but yes, people die, especially old people, especially people over 80. It's really common. It's been happening for a long time.
Of course.
The biggest thing for me was what the kids were forced to do by their own parents throughout the whole thing.
The kids were fine the whole time.
Yeah.
And they knew it, and people with pre-existing conditions ended up dying when they got the COVID virus because it pushed them over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading about how they think they'll never be able to understand how many deaths from COVID. Honestly, I think, and they're saying there'll be many, many more. I think if you really truthfully looked at it, there's many, many less. Like the people that died, unfortunately, they had something going on, and whether they're seniors and their immune systems were down, or else they had a pre-existing condition. But once again, we can't let government overreact like this. We can never allow that to happen ever again.
And so that was my wake-up call. Up until then, I don't think I ever paid attention to local politics. I don't think I didn't know who the school board was, like no idea.
Ignorance is bliss. You probably were happier too.
I was like, who's in charge? I'm like literally
Weren't you happier back then?
Who's in charge? And I'm, as soon as I figured out who's in charge, I'm like, Alex Chernus was in charge. Yeah. I'm sending him emails. So I sent him an email, and then he sent me an email where he had sent a letter to the president of the United States. So he didn't even respond. He had sent a letter to the president.
Well, you weren't the only one writing him.
Yeah. No, you were writing him too?
Everyone was writing him.
And they pretended as if, because they would always say in reference to me, we don't want to just listen to the loud voice. We want to listen to the majority. And they were pretending as if the majority was all for the shutdown and all for the masks. But really, in reality, most people might not have been vocal, but they all felt the same.
I mean, it's going back to what you said earlier about how conservatives are labeled a certain way. Conservatives have had trouble speaking up because when they try to speak up, masses of people gang up on them and shout them down.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't want to just listen to the masses or the gangs. We have to listen to everyone. And honestly, you were speaking out, but you probably had as hundreds of people in your group that thought exactly like you did, but you were the one that was brave enough to actually speak out. But it's hard to speak out.
Yeah.
You
have to be ready to be attacked. You have to know, like, you have to, when you speak, you're going into battle. And you're going to get hit back.
There's a word that we've lost, that politicians have lost, and that's representative. We're representatives when we're elected officials, and representation means you actually listen to the people you represent and you represent them, not yourself. Right. And most politicians now, many of them are just climbers. They're listening to what their ego tells them to go do. The world needs me because whatever. But they don't listen to anyone. You look at Sacramento, how few people in Sacramento actually have ever run a business. And they're passing laws that affect all the businesses, small and large. And they don't ask. One thing I always have fun with is, like, I'll ask truckers or people in solar companies or whatever, hey, they just passed a law on trucking for whatever it is to go to zero emissions or to change the type of fuel, whatever it is. And I'll say, did they come to you and ask you about how it would affect them? And they would just laugh. No, nobody ever comes to me. We just get these laws passed. It's so true. I mean, if our representatives would just take the time to talk to the companies and people that their actions affect, things would be so much better. But they don't do it. They don't take the time. They take the expedient way of listening to lobbyists and their party. Their party says you're going to do that, I'll go do that. That's not representation.
I agree with you with everything that you're saying, but I believe in personal responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want a change, then that's your job to make the change happen.
Agreed.
And so I feel like there's too many people that are waiting for somebody else to fix it. And in my experience, like that they were happy I was speaking, but they wouldn't speak. And I'm like, as long as you stay and you don't say something, nothing's going to change. Like, no one is coming to save you. It's up to you to save yourself. There's no way they could have come here with our founding fathers.
If they didn't dump that tea into the harbor, where would we be? Right? They took action.
Yeah, they took action.
People need to take action, whatever that action is. I mean, if action is giving $5 to someone you believe in that's actually out there speaking for them, then you should do it. When your friends say to you at a party, you know, MAGA and Trump are a bunch of Nazis, and you just say, no, they're not, and stand up to them.
Make America great again.
Well, right. I mean, it is. Think about that. Think about that. People disagree with that.
Yeah.
And anything that Trump says or does, they disagree with. I mean, if Joe Biden had said or done anything that I agree with, I would have actually supported him on it. Right. But unfortunately, he was not cognizant enough to do that, and he wasn't really representing anyone.
You worked as a consultant for the Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District, doing a survey. I think it was of 82 buildings.
Seismic survey.
Seismic surveys. So can you tell us a little bit about when you did that survey, what you found?
We got hired by the school district, my engineering company. We teamed up with another engineering company called John A. Martin and Associates, and they're a fairly large company. We're a small company. But we are here on the peninsula, and I have pretty extensive knowledge in seismic and building science, and that's my background. So we were selected to help the school district to look at basically their larger campuses, so their high schools and their intermediate schools, not all the campuses. And there's, I think, 82 or 88 buildings and structures that are on those 5 campuses. And so we did a complete analysis of looking at all the buildings. We documented the buildings. And what we were looking for is certain types of buildings. You know, if you have a perfectly square building that was built after a certain time period where the codes were a lot stricter, what we were trying to find as we looked at all the buildings is things that would potentially be safety issues for occupants, our kids, our teachers. So we were able to kind of prioritize all of those different structures on those 5 campuses and to develop which ones we really felt are the high priority based on the number of irregularities that each one had. That report ended up going back to the city council and the board, and they used that to then hire or go out again to bid again, and then another company came in and is now, I don't know if they've completed the design yet, where they are in that, because we didn't win the project.
Okay.
But that's what the next step is. Those buildings would then have a design to strengthen them so that they're seismically much safer.
When did they do the second bid?
I want to say it was probably about a year ago.
Oh, okay, so this was before the vote on the bond.
Oh yeah, no, it had nothing to do with the bond.
Okay. All right.
No, I think it was a legitimate deal. Honestly, the team over there, I think they do a good job of trying to hire. It's complicated what we do, and just like what you do professionally, it's complicated if you're not in that field. They do have a small staff, but I think they have a decent team.
Okay.
And I think that the way they went about doing the work was the right way. I mean, you want to kind of look at the big picture and see which things need to be fixed first. We prioritize that, and then you took the ones that are most high priority and you have those fixed. So that's the right way to do it. I don't think there was anything nefarious about that.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if it was like because he was on the city council or...
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they're
You fought back against the COVID masks, so I don't know if there was any personal stuff.
Nah, I don't think so.
That's good to hear.
And honestly, going back to the school district, my time when Dr. Chernis was there, I think that I never got a sense that he was on the team of let's just all put masks on. I always felt that he was trying to, kind of like our city manager. Like, I think he wanted to you got to kind of walk a fine line, which sometimes doesn't feel good from our standpoint. But the people that should be fighting for us are the board members, the councils, the elected representatives are the ones that should fight for us. Where really, and then if the council says to the city staff or to the the people that work for the school district, like the superintendent, they need to get their mandate from the elected officials. That's how that should work. They shouldn't be off on their own with their own political agendas.
Right.
You don't want that. You want them to be doing the things that the representatives are directing them to do. And same with our city manager. I mean, I would say our city manager played it safe, but he also knew that we didn't want to close down the city, and so he fought for that.
Okay.
So that was nice.
It's good to hear that you were fighting for that.
Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of the people in our group, and admittedly, I never watched a city council meeting for Rancho Palos Verdes.
Oh, they're riveting.
Anything like the school board.
Oh boy, they're riveting.
I started watching the school board meetings because I had to. I'm like, I need to know what's going on.
Honestly, they are interesting. It's funny because my wife, she for the longest time would not even bother, and then something caught her attention, and she watched one of our meetings, and then she got hooked. Oh. And now she wants to watch the meetings. You got hooked too? Yeah, so she wants to watch the meetings, and I'm not even on the council anymore. She's like, oh, the YIMBYs are going to be talking tonight. I'm like, okay.
The YIMBYs?
The YIMBYs, like not in my, yes in my backyard.
So tell everybody what they are.
So yes in my backyard versus not in my backyard. So the not in my backyard people would be the ones, don't do any development, don't do anything. And then the YIMBYs are, I want to build everything. And so you got the YIMBYs and the NIMBYs.
Do the YIMBYs own property? Do they have a house?
They're usually more activists. They're more liberal activists.
That's what I'm like, where do these people live? Like, why would
Apartments.
you
Well, the reason, in fairness to them.
Okay, all right.
The reason
Let's be
that,
fair.
I mean, think about it. A lot of them are young. It's pretty expensive to live here in California. So I kind of get their point of view. They believe that there should be more housing. I believe that, sure, there should be more housing, but the market should dictate that. So if a city doesn't want more density, the hotel's closed. There's no vacancy. We don't want any more housing. We like single-family residency. If you want more housing, there's more land out in the desert or somewhere else. Go build out there. Don't try to force us to that. Right. So, but I also listen to everyone. Like, I don't care. You could be the farthest left or farthest right person, and I'm going to listen to you because many times they have some good ideas. And many times the right answer is not left or right, it's somewhere in between. And it's good to find a nice balance because, our decisions are important.
Well, I'm definitely not in my backyard person.
Okay.
Because we lived in El Segundo and we could finally afford a house. We looked for a year in El Segundo and I had a vision of this yard. We're going to have a yard. Well, for $1.5 million, you could get like a foot of grass, right?
Yeah.
And then our real estate agent was like, you might like Palos Verdes. And then we came to Palos Verdes and I'm like, there's white picket fences and there's yards and there's grass. So we moved here for this. A lot of people say we moved here for the school. We didn't. El Segundo schools are fantastic and their buildings are great.
Thank you. So I went to school.
Right? The high school is like famous, historic.
Go
building.
Eagles.
Go Eagles. So we moved because I wanted my kids to have a yard.
Yeah, El Segundo's fantastic.
So then they have these high density projects coming in where like some of these places now you can do, like I was reading, you can build 6 units on one lot of land. These are like the proposed ideas.
Yeah.
So they're going to take my neighborhood that has like, we have about a ½ acre. They could just demolish our house and then build 6 little units.
Yes.
And then we're just like every other beach city.
That's SB 9 and SB 10.
It's on the ballot. Are they going to be voting on that?
Oh, it's already done.
It's already done.
Done.
Is there a process in the works of stopping it?
So our city of Rancho Palos Verdes were one of the general law cities that filed suit against Sacramento for SB 9. A judge has suspended our motion against it, but it's still out there. I think the city of Lakewood's the other general law city that joined us in that lawsuit. Redondo Beach and I think Torrance were the charter cities that filed suit against SB 9, and I think their lawsuit has gone further. The problem is Sacramento finds its way around things. Like the reason that Gavin Newsom's able to force feed housing is that he's saying that it's a state right, that we're in a crisis and we're in a housing crisis, and so he's able to get judges to rule in favor of these state mandates that force cities to, like you said, be able to split a lot into two and then be able to build ADUs, two ADUs, and now you have one house becomes six, and all these communities that people bought under the auspices of living in a nice, beautiful single-family neighborhood. All of a sudden, you now have 6 here and 6 here.
Yeah, and then they're going to be above, and then the scene in your backyard.
And if someone, and the city doesn't have their housing element and zoning in place, then there's builder's remedies, so now you can start building high rises. It's crazy the stuff that they do, and our city has always been fighting against it. All 5 council members and always have been fighting against that, because we know that if we're not representing the people in Rancho Palos Verdes who believe in that, we're going to get run out of town.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm a representative. It doesn't matter what I personally believe. If the majority of people in my community believe something, then I'm going to represent them.
You endorsed Eric Alegria to run for Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District.
I did.
And you also endorsed Ami Gandhi in 20...
No.
Oh, you
didn't?
Not.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, in 2022 you didn't?
No.
Okay, so he did not endorse
That's not correct.
Ami Gandhi. Okay, that was a rumor. So what they asked is, why does he choose to endorse Democrats and insist on causing a rift within the local party?
So the 2 Democrats that I've endorsed, and I didn't endorse him the second time, but I did endorse Senator Allen, because I thought that I didn't think any Republican was going to win that race, and I felt he was doing a decent job. But the more and more I learned about him, the less I wanted him to represent us. So I didn't endorse him the second time around.
Okay.
Eric Alegria and I have become very close friends. He is a moderate Democrat for sure. In fact, his party kind of ostracized, like going back to the Trump thing. He went there to meet the president. He didn't think twice about it. He got so much crap for that picture with him, with Trump, with his thumb up. A lot of Democrats don't even go to Terranea because of the Unite Here 11 union. Paul Seo's one, Janice Hahn is another. You have lots of Democrats that will not do anything at Terranea. Eric always goes there. When we did our 50-year anniversary, Eric didn't even think twice, he went. So okay. Eric has been, for him, it's his family, faith, community well before the Democratic Party. And he's fought for our city, and honestly, him and I, when it comes to city council, we've thrown out R's and D's, and we just think about our community. And so I appreciate that about him. I'm sure everyone that's asked this question has friends that are Democrats, and you don't say, you're not my friend anymore. Some people do, but that's dumb, honestly. You pick friends and you pick the people you support based on who they are as a person and the character and the things they do and the actions. And so I will never apologize for supporting my friend Eric. And I did support him for the school board. And honestly, and I supported Jeremy Vanderhall, by the way, and I've done that twice. I think the bond issue was such a huge issue, $300 million of our tax dollars. I didn't think that the 5 people that were on the council, maybe 1, possibly 2, could understand it enough to vote and make sure that things are spent properly. But I didn't think the 5 of them as a body, I thought that was too much money for that group. I felt at very least if Eric Alegria is on that school board, you have another person that's a financial person. He's run several of his own businesses. So at least you have someone along with Julie Hamill, who I trust as someone that's a conservative. I don't know if she's a fiscal conservative. I supported Jeremy. Jeremy would have been great. It's unfortunate he didn't get on. I didn't support any of the others.
Yeah.
Alexa, I did support her at the end.
Yeah.
I ended up supporting 3 people.
Right.
Probably a little late. I told her, had you asked me earlier, I would. She never asked me.
Right.
I think she thought that there wasn't another slot, and when she did ask me, I said, of course. So I ended up supporting her as well. I didn't support the bond because I didn't think that school board could handle it. I still don't, really. I still don't. And I thought if it's going to happen, you might as well have at least 1, maybe 2 people that could talk some common sense. You look at this oversight committee they just chose. I mean, I actually applied for that.
That's right.
And as someone to represent Taxpayer Association, I'm literally on the board of the Los Angeles County Taxpayer Association, and which is kind of I would say a right-hand person to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. I lost out to someone that was part of the Measure M committee. Honestly, I don't think that's a taxpayer association. I think it's just a committee. That doesn't mean that you represent taxpayers, that you're on that committee. And then I was told that person was part of the Howard Jarvis. So I asked my friend Susan Shelley, who's the vice president. She says, no, he's not even a member. So hopefully they get that solved. But honestly, there's 9 people on that committee. They increase it from 7 to 9. 8 of them are Democrats and one's a no party preference. So I don't know. You do the math on that. If partisan politics played anything to do with putting people on that committee, then shame on them.
Well, to me, it just didn't make sense when you've done as much work for the district as you have. When you did this entire survey, I can't imagine there's anybody else that understands the issues of the buildings and what needs to be fixed first other than you.
Well, and remember, Eric and Julie voted for me to be on the committee.
Oh, okay, so it's good to see
the other 3 did not. If you're going to have an oversight committee, you probably don't want to put family and friends on that committee. I understand that many of the people that were selected were people that were yes on the bond measure and were putting money in and campaigning for it.
Yeah.
That's not the type of people you want on committees. You want people that are on the other side that can challenge it and show the taxpayers and the residents that it is getting looked at by an independent group of people. That's my fear now, is you've got a bunch of yes people that are on. I've been on yes committees. I was on the Redondo Beach Harbor Committee. We used to rubber stamp everything. If you got out of line, you were not on that committee anymore. I really hope to God that that's not what happens, but unfortunately I believe that's where they're headed right now. And so shame on them if they put friends and family on there to just rubber stamp their decisions.
Right.
Leadership is leadership.
Leadership is leadership.
And if you can't lead and you're just making decisions based on where the wind's blowing, you should not be in any type of leadership position.
And it seems like that's who always wins. People that are just, trying to please everybody.
Because people don't pay attention or vote anymore. People don't vote. In my election,
how many people voted?
So they literally send ballots out to every single Californian. So there's no excuse to not vote. In my election, there was 38% of the Republicans voted, about 31% of the Democrats, and 4% of the no party preference voted. 4%.
I was in the no party preference then.
Did you vote?
4% I voted for you.
So you voted.
I was on the fence between you and Villanueva.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Honestly, Villanueva, him and I told you this, we got to know each other a bit, and even though he is still a registered Democrat, just like Eric Alegria is a registered Democrat, he's a good guy. Like I think he understands the role of representing people. He knows common sense versus idiocracy, and
I like that word.
I got to know him pretty well. In fact, we had a debate. Of course, the current supervisor didn't debate us. She's smart. I mean, politically, she's brilliant. Like as a leader, not so much, but only because she's a lifelong politician. And I think people have to have an experience of life, like real experience, raising kids, running a business, paying taxes, ups and downs of life before you ever get into public life, because what's the context? Like, you don't know how to solve problems because you've only dealt with public sector stuff that's, honestly, you just flail around with the wind. Like, the majority says this, I'll just say that. And I want to clarify one of my comments, going back to representing people. I don't always just do what the majority of people that come to meetings speak about, because a lot of times you just get people flooding the room. I think you got to use common sense. If you listen to people when they talk, they'll say what they want, but then, man, people embellish like crazy. It's crazy the amount of embellishment. So you gotta know, where that line is drawn. And they still want something, and I still listen to that part. But when they start embellishing, you got to just filter a lot of that out. And there is a silent majority of people out there, and the only way you know about that is to getting to know the community. Elected officials need to get out and talk to people. You can't do things from Sacramento or Washington, D.C., or even just from your house or business. You got to get out and meet people and listen to people, and that's how you can represent them.
One of the questions was, maybe you all can convince him to run for the open state assembly seat now that Al Marasucci is termed out in 2026.
Yeah.
So have you thought about it?
Of course. You have to think about it. I mean, we need to get rid of the super minority. there's 80 assembly members, and there's one party that's 50% of the population that's 100% in control, and that's not good. That's not healthy. Running for state office is very time-consuming and expensive, and if I was in a place financially where it would be not a problem, I would say yes, I would do it. I do want to be supervisor. I do want to run for that seat again. That's in 4 years. I do want to stay relevant. Doing interviews with you and others is great. It's a positive experience. It keeps me out there, but I think people look at elected officials a little more favorably when it comes to voting for the next office than they do non-elected officials. So what does that mean? Well, do you run for the Assembly, the Senate? Honestly, I don't believe a Republican can win the Senate seat in our district. I think it goes too far north to the Venice area, Malibu, West LA.
I know, but after these fires, I feel like most people don't change until something hits them very personally where they're forced to take a hard look.
I hope so, but I feel like people forget.
Yeah.
And it was devastating what happened to people up in Pacific Palisades and of course the people in Altadena. But honestly, you're right. You look at a Karen Bass and you say, we voted for her to be our mayor, our leader, the person leading the 4 million people that live in Los Angeles.
I feel like we should tell people in case they don't know. Who's Karen Bass?
You tell them.
Karen Bass she's the mayor.
She's the mayor of City of Los Angeles.
City of Los Angeles. Where'd she go? Was she in Africa?
Yeah, she was.
She went to Africa knowing that there was intense fire conditions. She was sent by President.
Well, her claim is that President Biden sent her
to
for the inauguration of the president of Ghana.
And we were on high alert for fires.
Yes, that's the part that she...
alert. We knew there was this mass windstorm coming in.
Even she tweeted out that...
Everything's dry. They were telling us to be cautious. But then they had a reservoir that was it empty?
Empty.
It was empty.
Yeah.
No water in it. Fire hydrants were empty. That was all because of Karen Bass.
That was.
It was all her fault.
Yeah, so you look at that, and do people blame just her and she ends up not winning her seat in 2 years, or do they blame the whole system of politicians that have failed? It's interesting, the other fire which we talk about is Eaton Fire, that was in LA County. A lot of it was LA County, and are they holding the county supervisors responsible for that? We have some serious problems all throughout LA County. Homelessness is one that's just so embarrassing and horrible. People that are on the street, they need help. They need to be in hospitals. But our leaders are just, they don't have the backbone to do it. And so we continue to elect people that are based on party politics. Most people don't care. So going back to what's going on in our assembly seat, we have two people that are running on the Democratic side that I just, it's the same old. It's party politics. You got to get in line. They're going to be told what to do. They don't represent anyone other than the party that they're in. And we get the same crap over and over again. For decades we've had that. And so me running for office, that probably would make sense that I'd be one of the top people running for this office just because of my history. I don't know. This jury is still out. I mean, we're early on in 2025 here. The election's going to be, in June of 2026. Mm-hmm. So it's more than a year away. Does someone need to jump in fairly soon? Probably. So
our Palos Verdes school board member, Sara Dean, is running.
That's what I hear. And our Rancho Palos Verdes City Council, Mayor Pro Tem Paul Seo is running.
Oh, okay. So 2 Democrats.
Yes.
No Republican.
Not yet.
So maybe they could split the vote for a change, because that's always so even though you and Sheriff Villanueva were different parties, I felt like your values were both the same.
Yeah.
You were both against the shutdown, like all your values were the same, like common sense, safety stuff.
Yeah.
But you split the votes.
We did split the vote, but she would have won anyhow because even if I had all his votes, she still got 57%. She only needed 50% plus 1 vote.
All right.
So she would have already won. No sitting incumbent has lost as a supervisor since 1980. So the other 2 supervisors won their race by similar margins. I think Catherine Barger got a lot more votes, A lot of people didn't vote. The 4th District runs from Whittier all the way down to Long Beach and to Torrance. A lot of people don't vote.
That was the thing that was shocking, because I'm like, so many people I knew were so angry over the shutdown. And that's what, like, who was in charge? Who was in charge?
Nobody was nobody was to blame.
And then, and then they just go on with 4 more years, or like,
right.
Yeah, that was hard to sit with. Well, I was disappointed, but I'm glad. So it sounds like you're going to do something.
Well, I'm going to continue to do something. I mean, once again, what you said was so true, is that a lot of people just sit and complain and do nothing. Do something. I mean, whether it's just as simple as writing a check for $25 to someone, or getting out and walking precincts, or talking to people and standing up for your values, all these things make a difference. I think there's a lot of people that believe that it all starts, and Republicans always believe that the individual has more rights than any government does, and that we believe in individual freedom, and so the best form and highest form of government is the individual, and the farthest away and the least is the federal government. You know, the farther you get away from the individual, the less their power should be. Other than protecting us from foreign nations and having the currency, they really should. Like the Department of Education, Trump should shut that down, and I believe he signed something today that is shutting it down.
Yeah, and people don't understand, though. They think that means that they're going to like fire all the teachers. Like, no, this is this huge department up here. Like, have you ever watched Office Space?
I do.
Oh, yeah,
it's the one where they're kicking the copier.
They kick the printer, but like this guy is just always making these stupid, ridiculous rules, and he's always coming up with a new memo. You know, he's got a new memo.
There's another guy that's in the basement. He's not even on the payroll anymore.
They keep making this guy move. He's like, yeah, I'm going to need you to move a little further. Yeah,
he doesn't even know he's not on the payroll.
And then he ends up in the boiler room, like so furious.
So few people have any idea. In fact, people that are in government have so little idea. People don't even realize in LA County there's 115,000 employees, maybe more now. 115,000 employees. Doing what?
Yeah, what are you doing? Like coming up with different ways to talk to each other, talking about, how to be more sensitive, like hours and hours on sensitivity.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that they have a great public works department, and they have some great people. Their county assessor's office, I think, does a good job. But honestly, we need to Doge LA County. We need to Doge California.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
So you said you had an article in VoyageLA. You wrote in 2017, so going way back. But you talked about when you started your engineering firm, JMC Squared, and you said you went 4 months with nobody believing in you.
Man, that's good research.
So when nobody believes in you, where do you draw your source of inspiration?
First of all, every person has to believe in themselves. Like, if you don't believe in yourself, you can't expect anyone else to believe in you. So I tell people that sometimes life is very tough. And I've had ups and downs, but some people have had really tough lives. Like, my life has been nothing in toughness compared to some people. But when you start a business, you're on your own. Like, and the inspiration and strength you get is from yourself and from your family and friends and people that believe in you. And there's a lot of people that are family and friends that maybe they don't believe in you. Like, they'll tell you, you can't do it. You're going to be back working for someone else soon enough. And a lot of businesses do go out of, because it is tough. But I knew that I had worked for companies that had so many dumb people running them. And they had some great people. Always the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people do the work and the other 80% kind of flop around. I just knew that if you keep believing in yourself and you keep going, 4 months was nothing. My first job, I did a design of a 3-story steel house in Redondo Beach, right near the high school, and they paid me $800. Mm-hmm. They paid me the retainer check of $400, and I knew that I was getting way undervalued, but honestly, they could have paid me $1 and I would have done it. It was my first job, and it was just an honor doing that as my first job. It was on Vincent Avenue. And it was, I put so much effort into that because I wanted them to really love my work. And I got so much repeat business from that. And then I started using that to leverage more and more work. So And there's nothing like starting a business from nothing and building it to the point where you're hiring people and you're able to have something that they can now provide for their family. So going back to when they said essential businesses and trying to say what's essential and not essential, there was nothing more offensive to me than hearing that. And I know, and anyone that started a business felt the same way I did. Right. And I think we need to remind people of those feelings and how the government is. You know, your question about the Senate seat, I agree. Like, we could look at numbers of who's a Democrat and who's a Republican, but honestly, I think everyone's had enough of this crap. The traffic, the inflation, the homelessness, the school choice, all the things, we just had enough of it. And we can start working around issues and not worrying about being a Republican. That's not going to be my first thing I tell people.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't want to go talk to the same groups that I was talking to.
It's kind of like your shoe size. It's just like...
It is what it is. You can't change it, and it is. And what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for my family? And how are you going to make my life better? And if I can't explain that to people, then why would people believe in me? Like, you have to go out and actually talk common sense to people, right, and tell them how things can be solved. And most people have no idea. And God bless them for not knowing, because if you knew how government worked, you'd be sick to your stomach all the time.
I know how it works.
You've delved into it, yeah. So you know your anxiety level goes through the roof.
Yeah, I've been I'm like not participating as much anymore. Mo had suggested we do this.
Mo's a smart guy.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. Like,
he won't
let's
edit
start
that
having
out.
conversations with people. You know, let's just talk to people so that we can wake people up.
That's it.
And also so people can get to know each other.
Yes.
Because, you know, to make like what somebody said that you were a RINO. And I didn't even know what that meant.
I get accused of a lot of things.
Okay, and then the question too, like, well, why did he support Eric? And I'm like, because I read your bio and I listened to everything you said. I'm like, you've been friends for 8 years. You worked together side by side. Why would you support somebody that you don't even know? You had never met Alexandria. So people were mad at you for not supporting Alexandria only because she was a Republican. Where I'm like, Eric has all this experience, and I've been watching the board meetings a little bit. I'm like, it's a breath of fresh air. Like, he knows how to run a meeting. Yeah. He's like, even though he's not the president, he's keeping people on task. Yeah. I'm like, he's a professional. Like, he knows what he's doing.
He does.
So I could understand why you endorsed him. And then also, too, my answer, because I said I knew the answer, you're an engineer.
Yeah.
Engineers figure out how to fix things. Your goal is to fix what's broken, and you're not going to ask people, are you a Republican or Democrat, and then kick them off the site.
Most of my clients are Democrats, I'm sure of it.
You just need everybody to work together for the common goal. And so that's what I think we need to move in that direction. Like, I don't like the parties personally. I picked one just
honestly,
so
I don't either. I think that the whole party politics thing is just tiring.
Too much.
I think we should take all R's and D's off the ballot.
Yeah.
All the ballots, state ballots, federal ballots. I think we need to start giving people time to be able to say who they are, give them access to media. You know, maybe every week, whoever's a candidate for assembly, all the candidates. If there's 2, great. If there's 50, great. Money should not be the reason good people are not our representatives. Just because someone doesn't have the ability to go out and beg for money doesn't mean that they are not a good person that can't represent us. And so, you know, that's become the delimiting factor. Like, people literally can't run for office because they can't raise millions of dollars. Yeah. And that's not good. I mean,
what could we do with all of that money? Like, you know,
right.
like, if we just
there's so many other
take the
things.
Money out of it, find a way that you know,
giving it to consultants or to TV stations to use for ads that play ad nauseum. How many Kamala Harris ads did you watch? Like, I was in Vegas, and of course she was bombarding, both Trump and Harris were bombarding the airways. You can't even watch it, there's so many. Yeah. I'm already was supporting Donald Trump for president, but it was just outrageous how much they had to spend. And what did it get her?
You said Eric got kind of attacked for just meeting with the president.
Oh, yeah.
Have you...
by his own party.
By his own party.
Yeah.
By his own party. When you met with Trump, I know there was a huge crowd
there was.
out front.
Great crowd.
Tons of people.
Yeah.
Some of my friends were there.
Yeah.
They were all waving their flags. Did you get any specific pushback for meeting with him to try to get the landslide situation fixed?
No, not at all. Everyone was very supportive.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's a turning point, because I wonder if you met with them in 2016.
Oh, it would have been uglier.
Yeah. So that, I would say that's a significant turning point.
Oh, I mean, once again, I mean, you were showing your MAGA hat. People shouldn't be ashamed to be who they are. I mean, if you don't believe in some of the things the president's doing now, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, that is derangement.
What are the things that he's doing now? Because some people are like destroying their Teslas right now. They're so mad at
crazy.
Elon. What are the things that he's doing now that you think are the most important, that is truly making America great again and that is saving our country?
Yeah. Boldness.
Boldness.
That's his number one thing. That guy has been through more than probably most humans ever. It's funny, they were talking about him at the convention, and I'm sorry, it was yesterday at the meeting with the Senator Moreno. He was saying that he talked to Trump, and same thing. He said, this guy's gone through all these things, and he said literally, had his head not turned at that moment, he said, my head would have exploded like a watermelon. He said it would have been great ratings. Of course, Trump can. He's the only he can make a good comment about that. But I mean, that guy has been through so much, and he's so bold. And if people could just open their eyes and their minds and their hearts up to what's happening, and say to themselves what feels right and what feels wrong. I think kind of like the journey you took. Mm-hmm. When the lockdowns were occurring in the mass, and you realize that's not right.
Right.
If people would open up their hearts and minds and have the same, even just an inkling of boldness that he has, like he's literally is giving up everything for our country. And, I was probably like most people. It's like, The Apprentice, and this guy is Mr. Narcissist. And sure, he's probably a narcissist. All politicians. How else do you
think I'm going to be president unless you are a little bit?
All politicians are.
Right?
So, but then what? But
you're not.
Now, you know what? Honestly, I probably am.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think anyone that's willing to run for public office has to have some narcissism in them, in some form or fashion. It's the ones that believe that only they can do, like going back to the assembly race. If someone great that I know runs, I'm going to 100% back them, because there's other avenues for me. If nobody runs, then I'm going to consider it.
Okay.
But Trump, the one thing he's done, boldness.
Boldness.
I mean, yeah, there's all the other things that we love, the Doge and the RFK Jr. and, Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, and the people that he's put forward and gotten.
They're all bold.
They're all bold people. Yeah. And I mean, Elon Musk is literally, look at how much he's risking. And he doesn't need money. But my God, I'm sure that the threats on his life are nonstop and scary. Like, I'm sure they're just frightening. And we need to all be bold.
And the crazy thing is, the people that hate him now all loved him a few years ago. And then I mean, it's crazy. I mean, imagine if we just turned on our family. I guess people do turn on their family. If someone said, I like Trump, you probably have a lot of family members that turn on him. It's like we can't even respect people for their own opinions anymore. Right.
That's not what the United States is about.
It's easy for them to turn on people because in their mind they truly believe that Trump is Hitler.
They do.
So they think they're on the right side. So what are your kind of hopes for yourself and for the state, California, and the country in general?
Well, you asked some.
Let's start for yourself. What is your hope for yourself?
Well, I mean, going back to the slight narcissism, I actually do believe that as far as California goes, it goes through Los Angeles County. I mean, we're a quarter of the population. If we can get some type of sanity and balance into LA County and get people to support the individual and support fiscal sanity and to eliminate homelessness the best we can and all the problems we have, I think it'll change California, and I think it doesn't really need to change the country completely, because California is kind of on its own little island now, right? If you look at the rest of the country, it's all red, and then you get to the East Coast and it's back to blue. You don't want it to be all blue here, and for me, I believe I would be a great county supervisor. I think that it's a perfect role for me after all the experiences I've had. It's the best problem-solving job in the world. Like, there's so many problems, And there's so many people working there that there's probably a lot of great people that are working there that probably have good ideas, but they never get listened to. It's dysfunctional right now. And so me being in there, I believe will be able to shed light on our voting and all the things that we question, that we think there's conspiracies because we're not ever allowed in to see what's going on. So for me, that's what I want to do. But until then, I'm going to fight for good people, fight for good issues, fight for taxpayers, continue fighting for the Palos Verdes Peninsula, and then continue with my business here to the point of where I can step aside and not worry. I still have to make money. Like the cost of living here is not cheap, and the house I live in, even though I bought it 20 years ago, I still got a payment to make.
Right.
So it's not like my bills have gone away, and I'm only 58, so I'm going to die when I'm 98, so I have 40 years left.
Why 98?
I don't know. Since I have a kid,
Why
I was
not
always
102?
I don't know. I just figured I don't need a letter from the president. 98 seemed like a good number. So I got some years left
Could
in
be on
me.
the Today Show at 100.
Yeah, I don't think that show will be around
No.
by then. For me, I feel that's the future. I'm going to fight hard for that future. The hope is, and my belief is that there'll be sanity again in California. I don't want to just destroy political parties. Honestly, I don't really care about that. I think there's a lot of good people that are registered Democrats that really are just good people.
That's
like
right.
My sister and my brother-in-law,
Yeah.
they hate what Barbara Ferrer did to our county. They were putting stickers on the gas pumps, and they hate Gavin Newsom. But a lot of people are just registered Democrats because they're part of a winning team. It's like if you knew you had to put a Dodger uniform or an Angel uniform on, when you're going to put a Dodger uniform on right now because they're the better team.
Well, and the only reason I registered as a Republican, well, not only reason, it's a lot of reasons, but I registered so I could vote in the primaries. So if you're not registered, you don't get to pick in the primaries.
That's true.
So it's like that's part of the rigged system. I'm like, we should all get to vote in the primaries. It shouldn't matter what party you're in.
Yeah. Well, that's for another debate.
That's for another debate.
I have to think about your thoughts there, but I hate this top two deal. I think that's ridiculous. That's really hurt. That's really helped one party and hurt all the rest.
Yeah.
You can clearly see how that has happened. But once again, if we get rid of all R's and D's and people have access to the media at a much less rate, I mean, there's plenty of venues now through social media and through the internet. Why do we need expensive media to get to people? We probably don't. So why don't we figure out a way to help all people get their message out so that we can select the right people versus party hacks?
That's right. Just to get the job done.
Yeah.
So I know you had a podcast.
Save Los Angeles.
Or Save Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like 47 episodes.
I did.
So
I was on the radio.
It was helpful because I went and listened to a lot. So when people were asking me some of the questions, I was like,
how many I did? 47?
I think so.
Wow, just
numbers are not my specialty.
Just like Trump.
40, that's right. There you go.
That's a good number.
Was that intentional?
I didn't know. I didn't even know.
Oh, okay.
Good number.
All right. So if people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, if you decide to run, how can people reach you, and what would be your message to kind of the audience?
I try to stay somewhat active on X, so the handle there is @SaveLA County.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
@SaveLA County. I still have my website up for my county supervisor race. It's my name, so www.johncruikshank.us. So people can go there and kind of see what that was all about, and the links to the podcast and all that. So I keep that up. I do have a YouTube channel. Honestly, you probably just have to search for my name because I don't know what the handle is on that one. But I do have a number. I have my debate with Alex Villanueva on there, a number of different clips on there on things that I feel. I don't hold back. I mean, you listen to the podcast. I've had people call me a RINO, which is just laughable. Since I've been a Republican since
I don't understand what that even means. Like
it means that I don't 100% believe with someone else, and that's crazy.
Oh,
if you and I believe in 80% of the same things, and maybe we differ on 20, we're still pretty similar.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think if you're going to have a Republican Party and have a majority party ultimately, you can't have litmus tests on everything. Like there's going to be things that just based on my experience, it's going to be different than other people.
Yeah.
And I respect them for their differing opinion too. We can't have a circular firing squad. I want people to know that I think that if we're internally fighting and we're internally nitpicking, we're never going to get anywhere.
That's right.
Like we have to expand even beyond Republican. We've got to reach the people that have stopped voting, and we need to talk to them. We need to talk to our Democratic
Because more people
friends.
don't vote than vote.
Yes, and honestly, I think that a lot of Democrats would vote for people that have common sense regardless of what party they're in. So we need to talk. We can't stop talking to anyone. Like we got to keep the dialogue, and don't be afraid. I tell people that's the one thing. You got to be bold. Sometimes you feel uncomfortable and you got to speak out.
We're open to talking to other people within Palos Verdes, people with a voice, people that are bold, people with influence. Is there anybody that you think we should interview?
I mean, there's so many great people. I think if you have an opportunity to interview Eileen Hupp with the Chamber of Commerce, I think she would be an amazing person to talk to. My friend Derek Gable, like he is a guy that was an inventor at Mattel. And he's such an advocate for the youth in terms of learning how to be entrepreneurs. He's very conservative, more conservative than me probably, but honestly, he's a guy that came here from England. And I think anytime you get someone that comes to this country with the hope of more freedom and they see those freedoms get eroded, they really have a perspective that us that have been many generations in this country have forgotten. And I think we need to take people like me and others that have forgotten why America was founded and what the Constitution was, and we need to reteach people that, because it's the people that are legally immigrating to this country that see it eroding and going away, and they're the ones that are the most concerned. And so I think he falls into that. I mean, if you're looking for other elected officials, I think former mayor in Rolling Hills, Leah Mersch, she's a fighter. She would be a great person to talk to as well. She probably would kill me for telling you that because she is she's very introverted, but she's an amazing person. I think Velvis Schmidt in Rolling Hills Estates, she's not necessarily a conservative, but she loves her community and she has a great story to tell as well. And my friend Michael Kemp in Palos Verdes Estates, he's a great patriot as well. There's some amazing people in our community. I think Lily Amini at Trump National would be a super person to talk to. Her story is great. How Trump picked her out when her family was delivering flowers to them, and he ended up hiring her to be the general manager and in control. There's some people on the peninsula that are they blow my mind. They're so great.
When I asked you why you decided to get into politics, what came through for me was that you have a service-minded heart and that your life is about being of service. So it would only make sense to get involved in something that you can directly serve the people.
Yes.
That really came across very strongly. And then also, secondly, your love of history and the Constitution and a really deep understanding of the dream of this country. And so it sounds to me like this is something we both shared. I'm first generation Irish American. So my dad was born in Ireland.
Okay, so then more than I do.
Yeah. So when we have a long history with the IRA, all kinds of stuff for another time. It was instilled in me to be both a proud Irish American. I am Irish American. That was always instilled in me. So that sense of deep freedom. But I get that same from you, that it's like this is about being free.
Yeah.
And how do we make sure that we protect America and make sure that we stay free?
Yes.
Do you have any final thoughts or any words, advice, encouragement, anything you want to share?
I mean, I think it's invigorating to be who you are and not let other people shut you down. I think when people start to realize that when they speak truth to power, that it makes a difference. I think people don't know how much power they really have as individuals. You don't have to have a group mentality. Just sometimes one person exposing or speaking truth to something makes a huge difference. That's why I do all these interviews, because I think it's important to inspire everyone to find what's inside of them that motivates them. And when you feel trapped, like I think a lot of people feel trapped. Like they know they believe things and they know what's right and wrong our conscious allows us to do that, but people don't allow that freedom to come out. And I think until they allow themselves to be who they are, they're going to be lost. And so I hope people can get out of that. I really do. PV Talks, rebuilding trust one conversation at a time.